Hello, how are you? I am Nikita, and this is Yoni Talk podcast. So, the last two episodes, I believe, it's just been me solo, and this episode we have a returning guest. Yay! So excited to have her back so that we can continue a conversation and expand upon it. I think it is a really important conversation to have. But before we get to that, let me tell you what the Yoni Talk podcast is about. Yoni Talk podcast is a podcast for women, by women, about we discuss faith, family, finances, health, everything in between. So if you feel that those topics are important to you, or if they're important to you and you feel like they're important to other women in your life and some guys too, they can come on, they can watch too, they can join in with us, then please be sure to share this podcast out. We are also on Instagram at Yoni Talk Podcast. We would love to have you. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We would greatly appreciate that. And of course, follow us on IG as well. Lastly, not lastly, but of course, we are sponsored by Just You Soap Company. Just You Soap Company is a bath and body product company selling not only facial bars, but bath bars, body butter, raw shea butter, raw African black soap, calendula oil, and more. If you care about your skin, if you care about taking care of the largest organ your body has, then visit www.justyousoapcompany.com. So now on to our guest. So Dennifer Reliford is a real estate agent extraordinaire. Actually, she is a realtor and an affiliate broker with William Wilson Homes LLC. She has been on our podcast before, and we're going to have a deep dive conversation today. Just in case you didn't see her the first time, you got to go back and watch it. She moved to Nashville to attend Tennessee State University back in 2001. And like so many people do when they come to Nashville, because I'm sorry, it is a great city. I'm a little biased. I was born and raised here. She made Nashville her home, and now she's been a long time Nashville resident. Her true passion is getting renters out of the rent trap, because just in case you didn't know, while you're renting that apartment, while you're renting that home, you are helping someone else leave a legacy for their family. And one of her passions is to assist you in leaving a legacy for your family. So without further ado, I introduce to some of you and bring back for your total enjoyment to some others, Dennifer Reliford.
Hey, Miss Nikita, how you guys
Hello.
doing?
We are good. How are you? Let's see.
I'm
Let's get
doing
this together.
well.
Here we go.
Hey,
There we
Yanni. Hey,
are.
Yanni Podcast. How y'all doing today?
We thank you so much for being here again. You look beautiful as
Oh,
always.
thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
know it's
So
I know it's Tuesday, but it's like a Monday for me. I just can't today.
I totally understand. It's one of those weeks where I think every day is going to be like Monday.
Yes,
It's
I'm
one of
Monday in
those.
today. So pardon
Yes,
me if you guys ask a question and it takes me a minute to get it together. I'm having a Monday over
you're
here.
okay. You're okay. So I think what we're going to talk about today is um home buying, but from a perspective of younger people. Because I think even in 2023, there are people who still believe that, folks who buy houses are in their, I guess you could say, mid to late 30s or above. But if I go up and down my Facebook feed, there are so
Hmm.
many people who are sharing about their 20 something children, young 20 something children, like
Hmm.
25 and below, being
Hmm.
homeowners. I think that the kids these days have a better understanding than some of the folks my age and older had about home ownership. So I think what we'll do is uh, start there, talk about that. And I found one little statistic that I wanted to talk about just to see how do you see it from your end. But I found an article that said that in the US, their first time home buyers are on average 33 years old, with the average home buyers overall being 47. These numbers
Hmm.
are drastically higher than when data first taken in 1981. So in your field, what are you seeing? And then what do you think about younger people, mainly 25 and below, becoming homeowners?
I don't know the exact stats for what age people nowadays are starting to buy homes. But what I see within the market that I work in is there's a lot of young developers, and with that being said, that means that I see a lot of guys that are very young that are
Mhm.
either choosing to finish college or choosing not to finish college, and they're flipping homes. And that means like
Mhm.
they're quickly buying, older homes, doing the work to get them rehabbed and reselling them, which is in turn building them absolute wealth. And to
Right.
keep doing that in this market makes them very wealthy. I think that going back to your question of what age are people starting to buy, millennials starting to buy homes, Generation X starting to buy homes now. I think it just depends on when they marry and what they choose to
Mhm.
do with their life. Like when I was coming through Tennessee State, I'm friends with a lot of people that were doing the medical route. I mentioned before I wanted to do the dental route. So
Mhm.
we kind of prolonged it because we had other educational endeavors. But there's other people that marry right outside of undergrad. There's people that are relocated for their first job and they maybe don't want to rent, or they rent for a short term. I think the rental market has pushed the younger generation into buying. I mean, if
Mhm.
you can do any kind of basic math, you would choose not to give someone anything north of $2,000 per month in rent. The math of
Right.
that is, 24,000 in a year that you've given up with no tax benefits. So you
Mhm.
want to spend your money a little bit more wisely, which is why people that are younger than us, that are younger, of course, than our parents, they're
Mhm.
going the route of buying homes instead of renting homes. And then it just frees up the opportunity to be able to do other things with the property as well.
Right.
And not be at the aid of a landlord that tells you whether or not you can paint, whether or not you have a pet, how much you have to pay them per month for a pet. So home
Right.
ownership plays various roles and does different things for different people for many different reasons.
Right. So when you mentioned something about them buying the homes and being able to do different things. We were watching something on YouTube. I can't remember exactly what it
Mm-hmm.
was, but it's a young
Mm-hmm.
lady. She's actually in Atlanta, and I think she's like 30. She may be 30. I'm not even sure if she is 30. I think she might be like
Is it
27 or
Kiana
30, I think.
Watson? Is it Kiana
I'm not
Watson?
sure. She has an
Okay.
Airbnb in her basically in her backyard. So she
Okay.
was a travel she worked remotely, but she traveled a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So she
Mm-hmm.
rented out her house. And then when the pandemic hit and she had to stop traveling, she needed to live in her house, but she really didn't want to because she liked the income that she was getting from her
From
house
the Airbnb, right?
from the Airbnb. So basically, what she did was she built her a tiny home in the back. And so I
Mm-hmm.
think she lives in the tiny home, or she may live in the big house. But at any rate, she was able to use that property to garner
Right.
her income, right?
Right.
Whether she stays in the back or she stays in the house or she goes somewhere else and rents out both, that's still, income that she's able to
Right.
make.
They're
Because I
basically
think
paying a mortgage for her. So what we would term that is house hacking. That's a form of house hacking. It's also a
right.
form of being they call it a OOSTR, and that acronym stands for owner occupied short term rental. So she lives there, but she rents it out, and the people that rent it from her are garnering her the income, like you said at the beginning of the
Right.
podcast, to take care of her mortgage and build her equity
Mhm.
off that property. Very smart.
Because very smart. And what I
Very
love
smart.
about, especially in the African American community, because not
Mm-hmm.
knocking anybody else, but it has to be said that that was the thing about, and people talk about it. And I don't think a lot of us understand the importance of that 40 acre and a mule. Why
Right.
it was important.
Right.
The reason why it was important was because other
It's the
other
foundation to
ethnicities,
stand on.
there you go. Other ethnicities know something that a lot of us do not know, and that
Mm-hmm.
is property is king. If you go to get a mutual fund, they give you a list of all these things, but the one thing that will never change in that mutual fund is real estate. No matter what they say
Mm-hmm.
about the housing market, no matter what they say is not this and it's not that, that's the one thing that is always going to make you money. Because if you own the land, you always have money. because you can
Mm-hmm.
pull the equity out of it to go do whatever it is you need to do. And that, I think that's what the young people today are realizing, especially young African Americans, that if I take this property, I purchase it, and I do like the young lady that's got the Airbnb and all that. There's another
Mm-hmm.
gentleman that I follow on Instagram. I think his IG name is Unspoken Game. And I couldn't figure
Mm-hmm.
out what he was doing till he finally finished. And that's something I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to talk about too, to see what you thought about it. And he's a
Mm-hmm.
younger person. So what he did was he purchased the property, and I thought that he was just doing something with it and then he was going to sell it. But what he did was he built from ground up a duplex. So he's going to
Okay.
live in one side of the duplex,
Right.
and then he's
Right.
going to rent the other
Right.
side
The
out.
other side. That's another
Yeah.
form of house hacking.
Right. So I wanted to ask you, how does that work? And then I think a lot of times what happens too is some people are afraid because of the credit aspect. What
Right.
does that look? What do you, I know that you have people that do that, but what does that look
Mm-hmm.
like just for that he built from ground up the duplex to live in one side and rent the other side out? What is that? Is that like more investment? How does that work?
So when you're applying for a home loan, you can get approved for however much you can afford, and then you can buy however much
Mhm.
house that you can afford. So instead of looking for what would be called a single family home or like a condo, which would only have room for probably yourself, what you would look for would be a duplex, or you would build like he did something
Okay.
that could, people can live side by side, and then you could house hack, you could live in one side and then rent out the other. And what the budget would look like would be whatever your mortgage is. You would either split that cost with whoever lives next door, or for most people, they just push all those costs onto whoever lives next door. And then you're able to live rent free for a year or two. And then you're able to go back to the bank. You're able to use that property that you own as collateral to get another loan. And then you can keep doing that. And that's how you build wealth. And you also build your real estate portfolio. So
Okay.
that's what that house
So,
hacking would look like. So when the bank approves you for a loan, they're not telling you what type of property you can buy unless you get a particular loan, like a USDA loan that would
okay.
only permit you to live rurally. So you would be looking out, and like there's area in Clarksville that we would have to look at a
Mhm.
home or something that something like that. FHA or traditional loans, conventional loans, they would let you look for whatever kind of property that you wanted. So it would just be up to you to say, I don't want to live in Broadway, off of West End in a condo. I would rather
Right.
look for something that's more duplex style, that's got more doors, that I'm able to get more people in. One of my clients owns a duplex and it's off of Rosa Parks. And so he has
Okay.
a front unit, excuse me, he has a front unit that's 2 bedrooms and I think one bathroom, and then a
Mhm.
back unit that's 2 bedrooms and one bathroom, and he rents both. And so the mortgage, you would just have to do the math. Are you going to split it in half and let each tenant be responsible for it? Or are you going to charge each of them that same amount and pay your mortgage down faster? The math would just be, what are you wanting to do as the homeowner? And what are your long
Okay.
term real estate goals?
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So when you mention, okay, so when you go to the bank, so when you go to the bank, do do you say to them, this is a property I'm going to be living in? Do you say to them, it's going to eventually be an investment property? How does that work?
they're gonna they're gonna ask you when you're trying to acquire the loan, what are your plans? Because there are loan limits and there are
Mhm.
different types of loans and there are
Mhm.
rules within the different types of loans. So again, that more so might be a question for a lender, because I don't want to
Mhm.
say anything that's
Right.
wrong. But I know USDA is only going to let you live rurally, and that's to help you with down payment assistance and things like that. That's a great loan for that. FHA is more, if you need down payment assistance, and you can put 3.5% down. Conventional are for people with impeccable credit worthiness and they have 20% or something around that, and maybe don't need down payment assistance and stuff like that. And then, of course,
Mhm.
that loan would grant you the most opportunity to buy whatever particular property that you're looking to do. But if you're wanting to house hack like that, there are loan limits, and they literally just through the THDA fund, they just got
Okay.
upped. Like that loan limit just got increased. And I'm
Mhm.
sorry, I don't know the numbers and I don't have them sitting here with me. But
Oh, that's
you
okay.
guys can always reach out to me and I'll be able to share that information with you. But that is another different type of loan that will allow you to apply for it and get aid with the down payment. But you do have to have credit scores that the bank's
Mm-hmm.
willing to do business with. So we talked about that last time. A 580
Right.
can get you a loan, but your interest rates are going to be higher, and you might not, depending on your employment and your debt to income ratio and all those things, you might not get approved for the same amount as someone with a higher score. But again,
Right.
the last couple clients that I had, one lady had, impeccable credit, and she didn't really get much of a difference in what they offered her, for her interest rates and things like that than people that had lower scores than her. So I always say, let me get you in contact with the lender so they can run your financials, and then each
Mm-hmm.
particular person is going to come up, different, because we're all different
Right.
and we all have different situations.
Right.
But
Right.
yeah, you can get into a duplex and you can definitely live in one side and rent out the other. People have really started doing that since that
Mm-hmm.
conversation has, become more mainstream, and it seems to be
Mm-hmm.
working for them. And then within 18 or 24 months, they can go back to the bank and use that
Right.
property as collateral to
Right.
build, their real estate portfolio. And that's how a
Right.
lot of people should go about getting the home that they want. The first home that you buy is
Yes.
not going to be a mausoleum for most people unless you come
Exactly.
from silver spoon. If you
Right.
are, first generation going to college and doing these things for yourself, you probably do need to look at a townhouse or look at a different type of
Mm-hmm.
property, maybe own one or two, pull the equity out from those two, and then you'll have the down payment you want to live in Green Hills or live somewhere, where they have the type of properties and amenities and gated communities and things that people think they're going to get in their first home. And that's the
Right.
conversation that probably needs to be had, is that your
Yes.
first home may not look like you think it's going to look, and that's
Yes.
okay. That's
Yes.
okay, because for most of us, early 20s, when, or mid late 20s, when people are really starting to buy, you're not home a lot. Let's be real, you're either traveling for
Right.
work or at work, so you don't
Mm-hmm.
need a man cave and a infinity pool and all the
Right.
things that you would want to have
Right.
once you've worked a little bit and you're tired and you want to swim on the weekends. You just can't
Mm-hmm.
afford it, especially with interest rates being as high as they are now. A girlfriend of mine at the brokerage has a listing, and it's like a 2 bedroom, 2.5 bath condo or townhouse out of
Mm-hmm.
Antioch area. And, it's probably about 15 or 1,800 square feet. It's listed at 285,000, with the interest rates being in the upper sixes, mid 7% range. That payment's going to be $2,200 a month. So could you imagine if it was a bigger house out Franklin, Williamson County, College Grove,
Right.
Green
Right.
Hills, 6 times the amount of money? Come on, you got to do the math. The math always maths. Your payment's going to be much higher. So if
Exactly.
2,200 is expensive for you, then you're going to have to start, modestly, and then build your real estate portfolio a different way.
Right. And something
Does
that
that
you
answer the
said,
question?
it
Does
does.
that kind of
And
answer? Okay.
it does. That's what I've suggested to both of my daughters when they get ready, which I've shared your information with them. So when they get ready, they'll reach
Thank
out.
you.
But but
Thank you.
you're welcome. But that's what we've always told them. Don't go out and buy a house. Buy you a duplex. You live in one side and you rent the other
Mm-hmm.
side out.
Mm-hmm.
So that you for that reason, have someone share with you and paying your mortgage, build up that equity so you can pull it out, and then you be able to do what you really want to do, and then you can bring somebody else
Exactly.
in on your side when you go get the house that you want, because
Exactly.
that is what I think a lot of people, like you said, a lot of people don't think about that. The other conversation that we had, if we stay in that vein, before, that now probably should be had again, is about students who are do not have housing on campuses specifically. So we're in Nashville, so unfortunately Tennessee State has that issue with housing, and more,
TSU.
yes, I'm an alumni as well. So and of course, more so, just have to put it on the table. It's not because the university, it's not even the outside looking in, it's just what's been put out, right? It's not because the
Right.
university has misappropriated anything, but because the state owes them a grave amount of money. And if they would
Right.
give them the money that they owe them, not just giving them new money, but give them the money that they owe, they would be able to
Back money.
build the house, right? The back money.
Mm-hmm.
They will be able to build the housing that they need. But while all of
Mm-hmm.
that is being sorted out, I wanted to really touch back on what we talked about before last time, which is about parents coming together, and really look at buying these properties or buying duplexes or what are houses and doing like community living. Um, what do you think needs to happen in order for that to be an option for parents or even students who are able to do that?
I mean, I don't think it takes a lot of dialogue. We just have to reinvent the wheel in terms of when you're bringing your children to tour these campuses, that needs to be a part of the tour. Don't just depend on, taking out student loans to pay for the housing and whatever they call it, room and board and whatever, the
Mm-hmm.
cafeteria, whatever. We got to
Mm-hmm.
start reaching out to business professionals like myself. And if you don't reach out to me, that's fine. I said that last time. Find somebody that'll take you around, show you new construction townhomes. I mean, there's plenty of, until we run out of land and we can't build anymore, there's
Right.
plenty of opportunities. I mean, Nashville has like what, two medical schools, two law schools, a pharmacy school, and an abundance of undergraduates. There's people coming, and then the music, you know what I mean? There's people coming and going
Mm-hmm.
every day. I'm sure that someone in the real estate profession can find you a property. And what you can go ahead and do is, run your credentials to see if you could purchase it, put your kid in it. And what undergrad is 4 years. In the 4 years, you can either decide at the end if they're going to stay, let them go ahead and have that place to live for graduate housing, or find somewhere else. I'm sorry, everybody's texting me. Find somewhere else, for them to live and sell that property, pull the equity out, and then do whatever you want to do with that equity. Either, buy yourself something different, live off of it, or whatever. But we got to step away from depending on coming to college, dropping your kids off at a dorm because there's not enough housing, which I
Right.
think, when you really think about it, is a great thing. That means a
Mm-hmm.
lot of kids want to go to school. So find the
Mm-hmm.
positive in it. It doesn't have to be a
Right.
negative thing. We
Negative.
just have to
Right.
I think the last conversation that we had was we needed to start having the conversation. So here we are having it, which means that the positive is we're having it. Let's move on to the next step. Contact a real estate professional and see where you stand. If that's not an option for you, then we'll figure out something else. But to just depend on dorms and have those kids in hotels, that's not working. Those kids are
Right.
so unsafe in a home. I couldn't imagine, having been 18 years old, coming from small town Indiana, and my parents dropped me off and they moved me to a hotel in a foreign town. There's no dorm director, there's no hall monitor or whatever, they RA, resident,
Right.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those
Mm-hmm.
kids are subject in a city that's as huge as Nashville is now. 22 years ago when I moved here, Nashville wasn't Nashville, and I still don't
Right.
want to say it was more safe or more unsafe, but those kids deserve
It
better.
was different. It was different.
It was
I've been here my whole life. It was
it was
different.
definitely different. I mean, I
It
can
was
remember
different.
being teased for even wanting to come down here and go to school, because back then it was really only known for country music.
Right.
People didn't really know the
Right.
backstory to the Fifth Jubilee singers, and that there were
Right.
different genres here and things. It's a
Right.
completely different world now. So let's change our thought process and stop blaming people and figure out the root of the problem, and fix it. It's not that
Right.
difficult. And I'm not saying that,
Exactly.
I don't mean to be flippant. I know that people sometimes have financial, issues or whatever, but most people don't even discuss that to take out a lot of those student loans, you have to have good credit worthiness.
Right.
You
Right.
can be rejected for those loans too. So then again, how are your kids paying to stay in those dorms and they're not even there? And it's got to be expensive. If they can put them in hotels at $200 or $300 a night and still cover those balances off that student loan money, baby, we're talking money, 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 money.
Mm-hmm.
You
And it
know
could
what
be
I'm saying?
redirected somewhere else. Yeah.
Redirected somewhere else. You just got to be willing to have the conversation and step out on a limb and recreate the wheel a little bit. And that's all I'm
Right.
asking of people.
So, when do you think? So, say a parent sees this, hears about whatever, when do you think a parent should start thinking about this? Because what you said is so true. It's not just isolated to Tennessee state. I don't know about other states, other cities. I know that it happened also. What is, I can't think of where Tennessee Tech is it in Cookville? I think Tennessee
It
Tech is
is.
in Cookville.
It is.
They had that issue, the same exact issue last year, where they did not have enough student housing and they had to send the kids to a hotel. So when do you think parents should start looking at an alternative to housing that they can basically control, right? Because you can control, a parent can control, if they purchase a house, or even if they rent a house, even if they do, a
Right,
rental, whatever it is, they can control that. They know where their child is, they know what part of town it is, and all those things. So
right,
when do you think a parent
right.
should start looking at that?
I mean, I can't speak for parents, but what I would say would be probably the best game plan is about their children's junior year when you really start
Mm-hmm.
discussing where they're wanting to go to school. And by the beginning of senior year, when they are professing where they want to go to
Mm-hmm.
school and telling you where they don't want to go to school, you know what I mean? Go ahead and start
Right,
reaching out
right.
to somebody if they're going out of state or if they're staying in the same town or whatever. Reach out to someone, and even if it's just to learn home values at that time, even though you're not going to purchase right at that time, maybe you can go ahead and say, hey, the Nashville market, it looks like 3 bedroom, 2.5 bath townhomes are running 333,000. Interest rates are this. Let's keep an eye on this.
Mm-hmm.
And then when, little Kim or whoever is going to school, then we can be better prepared and go ahead and reach out to a real
Right,
estate professional, get hooked up with the lender, see if you have equity in your home you can pull out or whatever kind of your financial stuff. But go ahead and do that. You got to give yourself time to move, time. And when I say
mm-hmm.
time to move, I mean time to implement, get things in
Right,
motion on top of moving your kids and the emotional aspect and getting them situated and all that kind of stuff. So I would say about a year. Definitely start
okay.
having the conversations and start moving around, if that's what you think would be best for your family within that year of your kid going wherever. Go ahead and start
Mm-hmm.
doing that, doing those things. And no, you aren't going to probably get the properties that you see unless you decide to
Right,
carpe diem and go ahead and purchase at that time. But at
right.
least you'll be ahead of the market and you'll be aware of the market. And that would just be my best suggestion.
And that is really good, right? I think that what you said is true, reinventing the wheel, thinking outside the box, because the time that we live in today is not just so much about what school they want to go to, how much does the school cost, but where are you going to live? Because
Exactly.
that's just a part of it today, because more
Hmm.
young people are desiring to go to get that secondary education, which I applaud them for that,
And why
for
wouldn't
wanting
they?
to
Because
do
the community colleges are giving them 2 years for free. So again, I mean,
right,
if they're not wanting to live at home, or if it is going to be too big of a commute from a small town to the community college, then let's go ahead and purchase a property.
right,
We know that they're
right,
planning on doing that for 2 years, and they're going to need somewhere to live. And even if that doesn't work out or whatever, they're still going to need somewhere to live. And then if they do end up transitioning into a 4 year degree or whatever,
hmm,
they've already got somewhere to live and we've built that equity instead of just all this
right.
money going out. We talked about that last time. We've got to get to
Hmm.
a point where we start using our money on appreciating assets and not
Right,
depreciating assets. It's
right,
not about buying them a car at 16 or a car at graduation so much as trying to teach them how to be fiscally responsible and where to put money to make money without having to run to a job. That's old. We all
right,
know after COVID, it's not,
right.
that isn't going to do anything for you. We all
Mm-mm.
made it. We all were forced to stay home, what, 3 or 4 months? And people didn't know how they were going to make ends meet. And some
Right,
people didn't. But we're all
right,
still here. We all made it through by God's grace, whoever's grace. And so we know that running to a job is not the only means of income all the time or the best means of income all the time.
right. Exactly. That needs to be a part, like I said, of the plan. Where you're going to school, how we're paying for it, and then that alternative of where you're going to live, because it
Right.
is
Housing.
high. Right. It is highly important for the young people going to school, and then even for because you mentioned something, um, and then we'll wrap up with this. You mentioned something. Uh, when you graduate, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
then that's something that I think I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
And I can only speak to Tennessee State because I don't know how everybody else has their housing. But I know at Tennessee State, when you're an upperclassman, you can stay in the apartments. But when it's time for graduation, you gotta pack
That's
up.
exactly what happened to me. I actually
Yeah.
got lucky. You're supposed to be like an upperclassman, like a junior, to live in student apartments, and they had just built a new residence complex. This was
Okay. Okay.
2002. I'm telling you how old I am. We were the first cohort to live in the NRC
Uh-huh.
And I got to live there from sophomore year up until I graduated in
Okay.
2006. And, I knew I wanted to come back and pursue graduate school, but the rude awakening was Tennessee State, even back then, 22 years ago, did not have graduate housing. So I
No.
was forced to find something inner
Right.
city Nashville or a suburb or whatever, but I was forced
Mm-hmm.
to move off campus, and that's a completely different lifestyle.
Right.
Same layout,
Right.
bedroom, bathroom, stand up shower, blah blah blah. But now I would be paying rent. You understand why I'm
Yes.
such a huge advocate for where is your money going?
Mm-hmm.
And not to mention, I didn't have the safety of campus security anymore, the
Right.
dorm director, the hall
Right.
monitor, all these
Right.
people that had made
Right.
sure I was safe while I was matriculating at Tennessee State University. And you can take those things for granted until you're pushed out into a city. And yeah, you can call the police, but it'll be after they robbed you, after they break in your car, after, you know what I'm saying? And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm all about safety. I'm all about being fiscally responsible, and I'm all about building a legacy that you guys can depend on without having to go to a job. And I'm not saying that working is a bad thing. Please don't misinterpret my words at all. But there's more money to be made than clocking in and working for somebody else all the time. Let's find other ways to build
Mm-hmm.
wealth. And there's a
Right.
difference between being rich, being poor, and being wealthy. And I just like to educate people on that.
Right. So all this is just so it is like
It's
rich
deep.
information. It is.
It's
It
deep.
is.
It's
It's
deep.
rich information because I don't think people understand it's more than just you buying a house. There's something else. There's something behind that. There's a
You get
whole
tax
thing.
benefits. You get
Right.
tax benefits
Right.
for
It's
owning.
a Right. It's a whole thing behind it. I totally love this conversation. We're probably going to have to do this again. I think I have an idea of what we could do again, so I'll talk with you about that in a minute.
Okay.
But
Okay.
we'll go we'll
It's
go
nice to
ahead.
be welcomed back somewhere, not
It
kicked out.
is.
So
Oh
I'm all
yeah.
for
Oh yes, of course. Thank you so much for coming back again. I love
Oh
this
no, my
conversation.
pleasure.
It always makes me think about other things.
Yeah.
So before we leave, what would be your last thoughts in regards to the importance of home ownership?
You just always have somewhere to go, somewhere to call your own. Like I said, you can get a dog, you can sit on the porch, mind your own business. You can paint every wall, one wall, half a wall, black if you want. I've walked into homes that they wanted me to sell them, and they've had every room painted a different color, crazy colors that you would never even consider. But they had the prerogative to do that because they own that home. And when they
Mm-hmm.
sold that home, one man's trash is another man's treasure.
Right.
Somebody else came into the showings and was like, you know what? This is our first home. Don't even repaint it. We'll do it as a family, and that'll be our way of christening our new home. You see what I'm saying? So,
Mm-hmm.
what somebody takes for granted, somebody else appreciates. And I just want
Mm-hmm.
people to think out of the box. And renting is great, but it doesn't have to be long term. And it's great to get up every day and go to work, but there's a lot of people that don't understand that they can qualify for a home loan. You just have to reach out to somebody that's willing to help bridge the gap. And that could be any realtor. It doesn't have to be me. I'm well renowned for going on these podcasts saying, it's got to be a fit. I think we talked about that last time. It's got to be a fit with the lender. It's got to be a fit with the agent.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to be comfortable because we are digging into financials. I'm not, because the only
Right.
financial piece that I get is a piece of paper called a pre-approval letter, and it lets me know how much home you're qualified for. And then I
Right.
take you shopping, what I consider
Right.
shopping, and we go
Right.
out and we look for properties after we discuss what it is that you're looking
Mm-hmm.
for, what it is that's going to make you happy. So it's just like looking for an apartment, except it's more serious, I guess, for lack of
Right.
a better
Right.
term. Because
Right.
you're going to purchase this and you're going to be making payments, and those payments may be
Mm-hmm.
higher than what you've been paying in rent, but not all the
Mm-hmm.
time. I,
Right.
I my newest test for people is for them to send me your rent amount. Send me your rental amount, and I guarantee you I can find you a property either at the same or sometimes lower. So you don't
Mm-hmm.
have to rent. Just reach out to somebody and start having the conversation and see where it leads to. And it's never a no. It might be not right now because your financials don't match up with what the bank's looking for. But it's never personal. The bank is a business, and if they tell you no, you're just not proving to them at this point in time that you could pay back a $300,000, $650,000 loan, $1.25 million loan, and that's okay. Because if you're working with a true business professional, they're going to help you bridge the gap to get where you want to be, and that's
Right.
ultimately what everybody wants, you know. So that's
Exactly.
all I want. I just want people to dig a little deeper. Start spending their money on things that appreciate, not depreciate. Cars depreciate. I used to be a huge car fiend until I started selling real estate. And then I
Hmm.
saw, how many times you're going to buy something, and as soon as you sign your name and leave with it, it's not even worth what you paid. How many times are you going to keep
Right.
doing that? And I
Right.
still like a nice car, but enough is enough is enough. I got to figure out a different way to build income. So people that want to, do business with me and hear what I'm saying and take heed
Hmm.
to it, then let's go.
Right.
Let's go. You know?
Awesome. Such good information. Oh my gosh.
Mhm.
Okay. So thank you so much again for coming on. We're going to do something else hopefully in the near future. I'll talk with you about it.
I just
Uh
think you want me to be your panel realtor. It's okay. I'll come on. I got 1,000 TNT hats. I'll come on anytime you want me to.
Thank you so much.
No
Uh
worries.
Everyone, this has been Dennifer Reliford. Is a wealth of information in regards to real estate. She's here
Oh,
in Nashville. Um, if you want to contact her, I will leave her contact information down in the description box below. As always, thank you for joining. Be blessed
my pleasure.
and be in peace. Thank
Thank you,
you.
Miss Nikita. I'll talk to y'all soon. Have a good day.
All right, you too.